Hello and welcome to the Scotland Rugby News podcast with me, your host, Bruce Aitchison, and him, the editor, Gavin Harper. And today we are brought to you by S1 Jobs. A quick word from our new sponsor. The Scotland Rugby News is brought to you by S1 Jobs. If it's time to hand in your transfer request, then head over to s1jobs.com and upload your CV today. With thousands of jobs across Scotland, you'll find the one that you want at S1 Jobs. Start your search today. Gavin, how are you? Great news. S1 Jobs are on.
Yeah, great news. And just in time for a couple of big weekends of Six Nations rugby. So, delighted to have S1 Jobs involved. And, long may it continue. How are you?
Yeah, I'm all right, thanks. I might head over to S1 Jobs. go and see what's available. There might be a few. Yeah, let's
listen. There might be a few people. There might be a few people needing S1 Jobs by the end of this Six Nations.
There you go. You beat me to it. So, good news though. Let's start with the good news.
Yes, the good news is Darcy is fit and available to play against Wales. So, given the last time any of us, I think, saw Darcy, he was lying on a stretcher with a neck brace on. I don't think many of us at that point would have expected to see him again in the Six Nations. There was obviously good news. Subsequently, he was passed all the HIA protocols. Don't think he took part in any contact training before England, but I've just been at a Scotland press conference with John DL, who has said Darcy is fit and available back in training. So, look, it's a pretty good way to start the week.
Yeah, it's the good news for me is Darcy's all right. I'm still, and these are entirely my own views and potentially not shared by Scotland Rugby News or the good people at s1jobs.com, but I still find it challenging that somebody's been taken off on a stretcher while he'd knock on his back. But the good news is Darcy's okay. Looking at the selection, Kyle Rowe goes all right. It's tough.
Yeah, I thought Kyle Rowe played really well at Twickenham. I think there's potentially an easier out for Gregor in that if he chooses to bring Darcy straight back, which you'd imagine on the credit the money Darcy's got in the bank, he probably will. But Kyle Rowe actually could move to the bench, and you go back to the 5-3 bench, which I think was in fact how Scotland started with Kyle Rowe on the bench against Italy. So I wouldn't be hugely surprised if that's what he reverts to, and then it becomes a Sam Skinner or Gregor Brown. But now look, I suppose these things are nice problems to have. Round 4 of the Six Nations, there's been years where we've been saying Scotland are going to be patching a team together here, where actually, yes, the championship's gone, I get all that, but there's still some pretty good players to pick from.
And off the back, an interesting weekend where Glasgow, being a Hibs fan, I've been sick of folks saying they've Hibsed it. It looked like Glasgow Edinburghed it at the weekend, and then Edinburgh Glasgowed it. It seems like.
Yeah, a really strange weekend of results, because I don't think many, myself included, gave Edinburgh much of a hope going to Cork, but
they tried their best in the second half.
I think
I saw the result at half time and I thought, wow. And then you see the final score, you're like, what on earth happened in the second half?
I think that's the worry with, it still was so far from perfect. And they got a fair rub of the green. The first try, Matt Curry's first try, the guy totally misses the ball in the end goal, and Matt's just got to put his hand on it. And then the third one,
when he touches the ball, he seems to look everywhere as
very
if to
apologetic.
Say, did that just happen? And sorry, I was just doing my job. It was a really weird reaction. And then I think Ben Velicott jumped about 6 foot in the air.
Yeah. And then the third one was just an up and under, Ross Thompson up and under that nobody caught, nobody dealt with from a Munster point of view, and Matt just kind of kicked it on and picked it up. So look, like there was an element of luck, but Edinburgh played well, and I think probably you make your own luck. I say that all the time, but you do make your own luck, and they've probably not had that go their way in games that have been tight.
Edinburgh have made themselves a lot of bad luck in the past, so I think that one...
that maybe they were due a slice of good luck. Also, Boan Venter, like, when, I know you maybe have different views, but like, when does he qualify for Scotland? Because that Munster scrum was on toast, and the only thing I was surprised at was they didn't have at least one guy in the sin bin, because they were really, really struggling. So that's, from an Edinburgh point of view, it was obviously a good weekend. Great weekend for Matt Curry, who had his own concussion problems and missed the trip to Spain. Glasgow were strange. That was as off as I've seen Glasgow for a long, long time. They were, and I know I get all the 20 players missing and all that kind of stuff, but we talk all the time about you come to expect a level of a Franco team, and they were way, way below that. Some of the defensive stuff was pretty poor. The attack never really got going. I actually was really interested to see how it went with Duncan Weir at 10 and Adam Hastings at 15, but I felt like at times they were getting in each other's way, and like one was, neither of them ended up dictating the play because they were both trying to do it. But look, it's their first home defeat in the league, in the regular season league game under Franco, which is just a ridiculous stat, and I'm sure they'll kind of dust themselves down and not worry too much about losing to the Ospreys. But look, it is a blow in terms of trying to finish in the top two, but they'll be there or thereabouts come the end of the season.
Talking of good news, I was delighted to see Adam Hastings back. I know he was playing at 15, but delighted to see him back. He's talking about making your own luck. I mean, if he's making bad luck, he's good at. He's just not had anything to shout about for such a long period of time. So absolutely delighted to see him back, and hopefully he's able to get back and have a sort of decent run of form and decent run of games. He's not going to be a British Lion by any stretch, but it would be great to think, excuse me, that he's going to get himself back in Scotland contention.
Totally, Aaron. You look at just before he picked up the injury, he was playing for Scotland, and I think we were even talking about if he can stay fit, then it's really between Adam and Tom Jordan to be that backup to Finn. Finn's more than likely to go away with the Lions in the summer, so you would hope that if Adam can get a run of games, it's Adam and potentially Tom battling out for the 10 jersey. But that bit is the key bit, is Adam's got to stay fit. And unfortunately, over the last sort of 2-3 years, that's not really happened for him.
He's just not been able to. But you look at Adam, hopefully gets a run of form in a Glasgow team that's going well. Finn, hopefully gets to go with the Lions in the summer. He's playing in France. I don't know, does Finn finish his career in Scotland so he's able to be looked after a bit, or has he got his eyes on other things? You're smiling.
There might be more chance of Finn collecting some yen than him coming back to Scotland.
I can see that, but it feels that I'm not sure if and when Finn would ever say I've had enough of Scotland. So
I get that.
To do that, he would be at Glasgow, or he would be in Scotland. The Japan thing, there's Ma Nonu coming back at about 486. I think him and Duncan Weir were at playgroup together. He's back medical joker in France. Finn's not going to do that, but I just think, you're talking about when does Boan qualify? We're now in an era. It wasn't that long ago where you never thought that far ahead. In my lifetime, you weren't thinking who's next. When
Yeah.
Scotland won the Grand Slam in 1990, you weren't thinking who's taken over for Gavin Hastings or Craig Cham. You just assumed it was going to happen. We're now in an era where we're actually looking not even 10 years ahead. We're looking the next World Cup cycle ahead and going, who's going to be filling those jerseys? And Finn, I don't think can go on forever. I know Dunky Weir can, but I don't think Finn can go on as Scotland number 10 forever. And there's not too many jumping up and down behind him.
No,
I
there's
still
not.
know nothing about Fergus Burke, by the way. I probably should be doing some homework, but I still know nothing about the guy.
But I think that's a really important point, is that to a large degree, nobody knows anything about Fergus Burke at international level because he's not played there. So Tom Jordan's still not proven himself as a 10 at international level. So we've got loads of hopes for these guys. But Adam actually is the one of the three. Adam's the only one who's played international rugby for, made a start there and played there for more than 20, 30, 40 minutes. So this summer tour is going to be really important for Scotland to actually say, okay, we're playing, say what you want about developing players and all that kind of stuff. We gave away some caps last summer and we played proper development, like tier 2. Scotland were always, you and I could have played in those and Scotland would have won. And I'm sorry I've done you a disservice there by putting your rugby sort of expertise on the same level as mine. But this summer...
It's more that you've put our level on the level of the boys that got capped, I liked.
Aye, that's maybe also a bit on me. But, I think this summer tour is against decent opposition. Like, look at the last time Scotland went to Fiji, and I don't think it's been confirmed, but if it is Fiji, that'll be a tough game. The New Zealand Maori, they're turning over test teams when they play them. That'll be tough. So actually, it's going to take all the players who aren't away with the Lions to step up and say, look, this is going to have to be about as strong as Scotland can get. Tight heads. How often have we talked about, get Xander wrapped in cotton wool? Inevitably, unless there is a complete disaster, and particularly for as long as Ty Furlong's injury goes on, Xander's going to be with the Lions. So, who's next? Will Hurd, Elliot Miller-Mills, Javen Sebastian, Darcy Ray, all these guys. We just need to find out more. And I think that's why there's a tendency to look that World Cup cycle further ahead, because, we're now talking about Finn can't go on forever, but I know tight heads play till they're 60, but at what point are we going to have a conversation that says, well, Xander can't go forever, and, a guy like Ollie Blythe-Lafferty's not played a professional game yet. I know he's only 18, but that was the exposure that Xander was getting at that age to then go and play for Scotland at 19.
Yeah, which is frightening when you think back to it. And there's a lot in there. I just sometimes maybe as Scottish rugby supporters we can get distracted by things, but it's because we care about the game and care about the players and care about what comes next, and we're aware of what the 20s are up to and who's signing contracts with Edinburgh and Glasgow, and we are thinking about it. I see Adam Jones has come out today saying all the pressure's on Scotland for Saturday. I don't know if that's some tactical press talk or what, but I tend to agree with him.
Oh yeah, I think he's absolutely right. And I think that, again, how many times have you and I talked about that typically Scottish uncomfortable feeling about being overwhelming favourites, even if you've got 10 players and they've only got 5. It just doesn't sit well. But the reality is this Wales team is the worst Wales team to have played in the Six Nations. They've lost 15 games in a row. They've had to get rid of their coach. They're 12th in the world, which is their worst ranking ever. And we're all talking about they played well in their last game. They still got beat, and let's face it, beat by a decent margin at home. So it's a tough ask. It's a tall order for them, but they will come up here and just think, right, well, we've got, it can't get any worse. 15 consecutive defeats or 16. There's nothing expected of them apart from, well, they might come and give it a go. Your mate's got them chucking it about from everywhere, so they'll play differently to how they played with Gatland and see where it takes them. So Scotland might not be playing for a championship or Triple Crown or anything like that. That's all finished and gone for another year. But there's huge pressure on this. Like, I think this is absolutely must win if Gregor's to stay in a job, and it's must win if Scotland are to have any credibility coming out the end of this Six Nations. Scotland lose on Saturday, and it would be probably the most embarrassing defeat of Gregor's tenure, given where Wales are.
It's such a big banana skin. We can, if you rewind the pods back to before the Six Nations, and I said Game 3 Cup final, that's going to make or break. And I said that England can't keep losing games by such small margins. Never did I think Wales were going to have new manager bounce. Had to do something in a really short space of time for Ireland. But now they've had 2 weeks to put something together. He's brought boys back in. This is the Welsh Cup final. This is the be all and end all. They will be dancing in the streets of every wee valley village if they can produce this result on Saturday. And it just, everything about it makes me feel uncomfortable. Absolutely everything. And we can't, if we don't win on Saturday, I never want to hear the phrase golden generation again. But in saying that, the flip of that coin is, I think we could win by 20 points, and it could be 35-15, or it could be like there's a chance for us to go and absolutely put them to the sword. And we've got the players to do that. Some people have said about England and how they've not got the team to really smack somebody. We potentially have. Duan could get a hat-trick, Blair could fire, Jonesy could pick up a couple of nice lines, we could catch and dry. All of a sudden it's 54-17 and Scotland are delighted.
54-17, you heard it here first. I just actually looked while you were talking there. So Scotland won last year, 2 years ago, in the corresponding game at Murrayfield, 35-7, which I think was a record score against Wales in the Six Nations. And last year, if you remember, we were 27-0 up before almost conspiring to throw it away in a calamitous second half. Like, you're right, Scotland have shown over the last 2 years against Wales, against a lot of these Welsh players, that they have got the ability, if they get it right, to absolutely cut loose. They showed that ability against England. They made so many chances. They had so much possession that you can't imagine the Welsh holding out the same way that England did. And frankly, whether Scottish Rugby and the team themselves choose to make something or nothing out of some of the refereeing decisions, I think you would be hard pushed to be so wronged in 2 Six Nations games in a row. So you're right, Scotland definitely do have the players that they could cut loose. But to go back to what you were saying earlier about being nervous, how does that, like, if you're nervous, I am nervous. I've spoken to like Rob Robertson's column on the site yesterday, said he takes no pleasure, feels no pain for Wales in their suffering. But like,
he's a hard man, because I totally do. I didn't wish that on anybody. Rob Robertson is a hard man.
We'll have to have him on again, and he can defend himself. But yes, I think he's no sympathy for Wales. By the sounds of it, for Wales male well-voiced Welsh male-voiced players or Max Boyce. So look, it's
I'm not a fan of that either. I'm a big fan of the male voice choir and of Max Boyce. Hymns and Arias is an absolute gem.
And if Wales win, I have visions of you on Princess Street on Saturday night belting out hymns and arias.
No. I can't take joy in them winning. No chance.
I think here's an interesting point. Starting 15 picks itself. I'm not quite sure it does, but
I'm not sure about that. I'm not sure it picks itself because none of us would have picked Suz in front of Pierre.
Yeah, but I think with hindsight, neither probably with Gregor. I think that feels like a mistake. So what are your thoughts on the bench? For me, the impact hasn't been there. Apart from the Italy game, tend to agree. And with that in mind and the way that Jamie Ritchie played, could we see Dempsey go back to the bench? Matt Fagerson starts at number 8. So you get Dempsey off the bench. Gregor Brown, I think, has been more impactful in his time on the pitch than, well, probably any of the second row in terms of his actual ball carrying. But it feels like that might be a toss-up between him and Sam Skinner for the bench spot.
See, I find that one interesting. Does the second rows Gilco starts?
Yeah, I agree. I think, and Gregor's always gone to Gilchrist.
Does Johnny Gray, is he starting? Sam Skinner gets sent away to play for Edinburgh. Is Greg? No, it's Jack Mann, sorry, that's out injured.
Yeah, for me, I think it's interesting because Johnny Gray had to obviously go back and play for Bordeaux. Sam Skinner went and played for Edinburgh, but Gregor Brown didn't play for Glasgow. They probably could have done with him. But do we read anything into that?
Well, I get what you mean, but that could also be a risk. If all three of them went away and played and all three of them came back injured, then Gav,
exactly what I was just about to say. Yeah, is that just you've got to save one because the other?
And Sam Skinner's missed a fair. He's missed a fair chunk.
Yeah,
and there's a lot of bias here. I'm a massive Sam Skinner fan, and I think he's a big, horrible specimen.
The other one that I wonder about is, and this again is horses for courses, but if you go back to the 5-3 on the bench, do you get George Horn in?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's tough on Dobie. I think both George Horn and Dobie are class. I've got absolute rose-tinted spectacles for both of them. Ben White's obviously first choice.
Yeah.
George Horn, Jamie seemed to have been the man for a 6-2. George seemed to be the man for a 5-3. I'm not really sure I fully understand the logic. But, George Horn, we've spoken about this, appears to be in the form of his life, yet he's not been able to play for the last 3 or 4 weeks, so maybe he's not again. But I think it'll be interesting to see who he picks on the bench for the backs, because it'll be dependent on who it probably is Ben White, Finn Russell, TJ Jones, Duhan, Darcy, Blair. I think that probably is the team that'll start.
Yeah.
So does that Kyle Rowe drop to bench, and then you go with who? Stafford and
George.
George.
Or Jamie.
Yeah, I mean, Stafford's done well, I think, and he did well when he came on against England.
And then you've still got that flexibility that if you have, George at a push could play on the wing, but you've got moving parts that, there are multiple players in that.
You've got Kyle covering the back three. You've got Blair covering the wing and 10.
Yeah.
You've got Tom Jordan covering 10. You've got Stafford covering 12 and 13. You've got Kyle. Yeah, I mean, there's loads of flexibility there.
Yeah.
Up front, there probably isn't a lot of flexibility. He probably still goes with Dave Cherry to start rather than Ashman.
And by the way, like let's not forget that we were sitting here probably 6 weeks ago saying, can you believe it? Dave Cherry's back in the Scotland squad. Hasn't played for the world since the World Cup. And not once in the opening 3 rounds have we debated that he should be the first choice hooker, because he's come in, his lineouts have been good, the scrum hasn't been so good, but I think there's more to that than just him. He gave the wee cat flap offload for Ben White against Italy. Like, Ashman came on against England and was not good. It was interesting. I thought that he went back to play for Edinburgh. I asked Sean Everett about that last week, and Sean said that was a discussion between, basically with Gregor, rather than Ewan saying, look, I realised that wasn't very good against England. I want to put my hand up, but he got a half when he was on. Edinburgh were good against Munster. Paddy Harrison got the second half. I get that point that the bench feels like it lacks a bit of impact. I actually just, when you were talking, is there a scenario where one of the back row guys drop out completely and Gregor Brown covers the back row, Sam Skinner covers the second row? You know, that is always an option. I think that would be another one of those getting too clever. But
talking about 6 weeks ago, Jack Dempsey was potentially on the Lions plane.
Yeah, and
now, now he's probably Matt was the one that ended up dropping out for Jamie. Jamie then plays well. Now we're talking about Darge and Richie both starting, and it's who between the others. I wrote a piece on so I think it was went live on Monday about I think the 2 Scotland players who've played themselves into the conversation about the Lions are Rory Darge and Jamie Ritchie, because I think Jamie against England was superb, you know. So you're right, it is interesting how quickly it all moves. But yeah, we'll wait and see. Just another couple here. Wales got Aaron Cole by changing their style, which I think is true. The extra 2 weeks of analysis time is on Scotland's favour. Yeah, Sam, I kind of get that, but you've got one game to go on, and it was against Ireland. Because I was actually on my bit I was yapping about before. I actually, do we know what team Jockey Sherritt's going to pick? Potentially makes things challenging as well for analysis. Now, everybody's got a plan until you get punched in the face. I think it's an interesting one. Personally, I think the 2 weeks is a bigger benefit to Wales than it is to Scotland. Yeah,
I probably agree with that, and I think it must be pretty tough when you've only really got. I know you can look at club stuff, and I know you can look at individual players, and I get all that. You've only got one game of analysis that you can do on this Wales team as a cohesive unit. That's
not a huge.
That can't be overly common in international rugby in this day and age.
Well, it's a bit like prepping for the first game.
Yeah, exactly.
You've had all the time in the world to put things together. Obviously, you don't show all your cards in one game, and you can change line out call. You can change a couple of things in it, but as a principle, it's very difficult to change that. Sorry, that was Gregor on the phone.
So I wondered which of the coaches that was going to be dialing in to get your expert opinion.
It was Gregor. He said he wanted to speak to me before they announced the team on Thursday, and it's selection now. So he'll be letting the players know now. So that was him just phoning, making sure everyone was all right. So I'll phone him after this. Sorry, I told him we were starting at 7:30. He would just be trying to get in before we started.
Is that you're going to have to get your boots polished?
Possibly, or just give him a whistle, a blow. I just think the analysis, like up front, the boys know each other very well from URC duties, but Wales on Saturday, I wouldn't be surprised if they pulled a 14-man driven line out of the bag, or a penalty move, or they could potentially have 2 or 3 things up their sleeve, because Scotland can't see it coming.
It's also funny you say that, because I spoke to someone earlier who knows
more about rugby than me
very, 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 very well, and he said, don't be surprised if in the last 10 days Wales have come up with a few funnies, and there's a couple of trick plays and a couple of really deceptive starter plays, and they try and catch Scotland out with something a bit sneaky. So yeah, look, that'll be interesting. It would be interesting if they threw something like that at Scotland, because I think one of the things that people like me often say about this Scotland team is their ability to adapt and think on their feet is never that good. That's often a thing that lets them down. So it would be really interesting to see if there was, remember when Italy did the thing with the no ruck and they all stood round it? Like, I would love to see Scotland challenged with something really unusual like that, because it would test the players' ability to problem solve.
Imagine if a team didn't box kick. Is that not just like some kind of dream?
I don't think that would be allowed. I think the referee would probably just stop the game and we'd all have to go home.
I think that would be a dream. But, the thing everybody wants more of is time.
Yeah.
And even though it feels like professional teams have a lot of time, by the time they've done everything else and they've recovered and they've sort of, got their foundations in place, it's sometimes difficult to add things that feel a bit luxury. But Wales are at a point where how much time has he actually got to put foundations in? So how do we pull 2 or 3 rabbits out the hat? First 15 minutes, we're not going to compete at the breakdown. We're going to let them have it. We're going to fill the field. We're going to make really dominant hits, and we're not going to challenge the breakdown. Or first 15 minutes, we are going to absolutely hammer into every single breakdown, disrupt, upset folk, push, pull. We're just something to change the picture.
Yeah, and I think you'll be able to tell a lot of that by the way that Wales' selection goes. The last against Ireland, he went Tommy Raffel at 6, Jack Morgan at 6, and Raffel at 7, which says we're coming to have a go at every breakdown. And they made a nuisance of Ireland's ball and they slowed their game down that way. I think Scotland, a thing that they didn't do well against Ireland was the speed of that ruck ball against England was much, much quicker, which gave TJ that space. And if we're being honest and being ultra critical, Scotland should have scored probably another 2 tries in that first half at Twickenham. And that's where the game got away. It wasn't about missed kicks or ultimately, refereeing decisions. I think Scotland had it within their grasp to go and win that and failed to do so. So, look, I think you're right. I think there's a balance to be struck there for Wales, but I also expect that they'll come and have a go. You look at the way Cardiff played. Matt Sherratt was, Cardiff coach. I think they'll have a go. And look, I said this. I've said this about Scotland's next 2 games. They could both end up being crazy basketball scores, because this weekend there's nothing to play for in terms of the title, in terms of the championship. But for Wales there is, but for Scotland, but there's everything to play for in terms of the bigger picture. So yeah, we'll wait and see.
Yeah, that bigger picture thing. There's so much going on. There's for Scotland, England, Ireland, Wales. There's the Lions for stand-ins for World Cup qualifiers, for players sticking their hand up to be part of what's moving forward. The summer tours. there's actually so much on the line, although it's not on the line in terms of Scotland or Wales are going to win the championship. But if Wales win, all of a sudden things feel a bit better. They've lightened the load. If Scotland win, well, you were expected to win, and now you've got to go and do something against France to really make your Six Nations feel a bit more positive. The way Dupont and some of these boys are playing, and by the time they get to then, their lives could be dependent on it. Or the opposite, game's gone, right, let's just have some fun, lads, in front of 80,000 people. Do you know, I don't think I've guessed as much this Six Nations as I have for a very, very long time.
Yeah, and it feels like that, apart from sort of Ireland will be Ireland, it feels like loads of the other countries, loads of the other stuff is a bit up in the air. You know, who would have thought that France would go to Italy and put 70 on them? Like, and nobody can claim that they saw that result come in. Nobody, you know, the way Scotland or the way that England's last two games have unfolded, I think opposition teams have contrived to lose those games rather than England being brilliant. But they're still in with a hunt at the championship, and I can tell you now that would I rather be in their position with 2 games to go than Scotland's? 100%.
Well, you look at the last 2 weekends, right? If France beat Ireland on Saturday, all of a sudden France are playing Scotland at home with a chance to win the championship. England are finishing with Italy and Wales, and Ireland have got Italy the week after. So we could end up almost to a position of, on the last weekend, 3 teams are playing for someone and 3 teams are not, if you get my drift. Like, totally. We're in a position, which is great for the chart. It's crap for Scotland because we're one of the 3 that's not really playing for it, and potentially by then. But
and I think that's the reality. Like, you talked a minute ago about Scotland win on Saturday, and we all say, "Whoa, that was a relief," and that'll be it. Like, there will be no, and there should be no high-fiving or you know, great celebration, because this has got the potential to be such a banana skin that you can imagine being inside that dressing room at 7:00 on Saturday night, if they've won, will feel like just pure relief. But they'll already know by then, well, we're going to have to go to Paris. And I think they know that now. They're going to have to go to Paris and do something seriously impressive. Because, as I keep saying, John McGuigan, when we spoke to him last year, was quite clear. 2 wins in the Six Nations isn't good enough. He accepted that last year when they had no performance director, and they've got that now. So I can't see that being tolerated again.
I'm calling it now. Finn Russell drop goal to win it in France.
And I mean, the fact that we're talking about Finn Russell drop goals itself is incredible. I think he's only ever kicked one. Just a quick one here. Wales nothing to lose. New coach saying go out and play with a couple of basic things in place. Some senior players to help the younger lads. Gareth Anscombe. What a difference having a guy who is a 10 and plays at 10 for his club, playing at 10. That just seemed mad from Gatland.
He's and also actually smoking hot.
We had this conversation last week about Sunday.
Gareth Anscombe. I did something during COVID with Gareth Anscombe. We did a live watch along when you couldn't go to the Six Nations. Yeah. We did a watch along thing. I mean, you'll be too young for Naked Gun movies, where the guy goes to the toilet with his microphone on, and everybody in the auditorium can hear him relieving himself. Gareth Anscombe went away for a pee with his AirPods in while we were still live. He went away for a halftime pee while we were talking. Anyway, I digress. But yeah, Anscombe, class. And that old head putting them in the right positions.
Yeah,
you know,
and actually,
he's got a lot to play for.
And exactly what Craig was saying in that comment, like helping people. Yes, you're going to have to throw in a load of young players because you've lost all your experience. But having somebody like Anscombe in such a pivotal position, probably with Thomas Williams at 9, Max Llewellyn, like there's Gloucester 9, 10, 13. And having that continuity for them was so important that, look, I with no inside knowledge, that seems to have been more than a rugby decision from Gatland, or a complete stubbornness about looking at 2027, because it just felt like square pegs and round holes and all that kind of stuff. It was just silly. So
yeah,
I think
Anscombe's also a class player. Like you said right at the beginning about Darcy's got money in the bank. To me, Anscombe's got money in the bank. He's
and he should do. Act. And the other one up front is Faletau. Like, you know, guy's always injured. Another one with absolutely dreadful luck. But when the chips are down and when the things are as bad as they are, to be able to bring in a guy who's played 100 games, international rugby, been on more Lions tours than I can even begin to count, like, why wouldn't you? You know,
they're also like Bonesy was saying there. There's a lack of leadership. We've been here before. It's all right. I've got this. Don't worry. And you look around the circle and you see Anscombe, Faletau. All of a sudden you're like, right, okay, we might be all right here.
Yeah, I think this is another one. This isn't must win. This is a will win comfortably. 5 weeks ago,
I love it.
I had Grant's confidence and enthusiasm. Grant, I wish I still had it, because I think we've been here and we've seen this script play out too many times to be as confident as that. But who knows? Maybe I'm being typically Scottish and typically pessimistic.
Well, we'll see when the teams are announced. Good to see you, fella. There's plenty to get excited about. It. I like the not knowing, and let's face it, being Scottish rugby fans, we've very seldom gone into anything feeling like we know what's going to come out the other end of it. So let's just go on with it and enjoy it. Right, look after yourself. Looking forward to the team announcements, and hopefully it's going to be a good week, and we'll be here chatting next week about a good Scottish win. What do you reckon?
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. One last word from our sponsors. The Scotland Rugby News podcast is brought to you by S1 Jobs. If it's time to hand in your transfer request, then head over to s1jobs.com and upload your CV today. Thousands of jobs across Scotland. You're bound to find the one that you want at S1 Jobs. Start your search now. All the best, big fella. Good to see you. Look after yourselves, folks. I was Bruce Aitchison. He was Gavin Harper, and we'll speak to you soon.